There are people in this world who survive on your reactions. They study your emotions, press against your wounds, and wait for the moment you lose your balance. Your anger feeds them. Your fear empowers them. Your desperation gives them control. But something extraordinary happens the day you finally master yourself. The day you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop arguing, and stop allowing their chaos to enter your spirit. They begin to lose their power over you. Because calmness is a strength many people do not understand. A peaceful mind cannot be manipulated easily, and a person who has learned to control their emotions becomes untouchable in a world addicted to emotional confusion. Today, we are going to uncover the silent power of self-control, the freedom that comes with emotional discipline, and why the moment you choose peace over reaction is the exact moment they realize they can no longer control you. Something inside you begins to change. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth to people who have already decided not to see it. You stop wasting your energy trying to win arguments that were never meant to bring understanding. And slowly, quietly, you begin to understand that true power is not found in loud voices, angry responses, or emotional explosions. True power is found in self-control. It is found in the ability to remain steady while chaos tries to pull you apart. Some people expect you to break. They expect you to defend yourself endlessly, to cry in front of them, to react in ways that make them feel important. There are people who provoke others because control is the only thing that makes them feel strong. They know that if they can control your emotions, they can control your peace. That is why they push your buttons. That is why they test your patience. But the moment you stop giving them access to your emotions, the entire game changes. Your silence confuses them. Your calmness unsettles them. Your ability to walk away without anger becomes something they cannot understand. There is a deep strength in refusing to react to negativity, not because you are weak and not because you are afraid, but because you finally realize that every battle does not deserve your energy. Maturity teaches you that protecting your peace is more important than proving a point. And sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is remain calm in situations that once would have destroyed them emotionally. Healing begins when you stop allowing people to pull you into emotional storms that they created themselves. Many people believe power looks aggressive. They think strength means dominating every conversation or always having the last word. But some of the strongest souls walk away quietly. They choose dignity over drama. They choose inner peace over emotional chaos. And that kind of strength cannot be shaken easily because it comes from wisdom, not ego. When you master your emotions, you stop becoming a prisoner of other people's behavior. Their opinions no longer define you. Their rejection no longer breaks you. Their manipulation no longer controls your direction. You must understand this. Every reaction costs energy. Every unnecessary argument steals peace from your spirit. And if you spend your life reacting to everything, you will eventually lose yourself trying to manage everybody else's emotions while ignoring your own healing. There is freedom in no longer needing to respond to every criticism. There is peace in no longer needing revenge to feel validated. Sometimes your growth will be seen in the things you no longer entertain. The most powerful people are not always the loudest people in the room. Often they are the calmest. They have learned that peace is a form of protection. They have learned that silence can speak louder than anger. And they understand that when you truly know your value, you stop reacting to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Because the moment you stop reacting emotionally to every attack, every manipulation, and every disappointment, you begin to rise above the control others once had over your life. There is something powerful about a person who has found peace after pain. Not temporary peace, not the kind that depends on circumstances, but the kind that comes from finally knowing who they are. People who once had control over your emotions begin to feel uncomfortable when they can no longer disturb your spirit. They notice the difference when their words no longer trigger anger, when their absence no longer creates desperation, and when their manipulation no longer shakes your confidence. Your peace becomes a mirror that reflects their inability to control you anymore. And that is something many people cannot tolerate. Some individuals build relationships around emotional dependency. They feel important when you constantly seek their approval. They feel powerful when your mood depends on their attention. And the moment you begin healing, the moment you stop chasing validation, the balance begins to shift. Suddenly, the same person who ignored your feelings starts noticing your distance. The same person who took your kindness for granted becomes confused by your calmness. Because peace changes your energy. It teaches you not to beg for love, not to force understanding, and not to fight for a place in someone's life where you are not valued. Inner peace is dangerous to manipulative people because peaceful people are harder to control. When you are emotionally wounded, you react quickly. You overthink every message, every silence, every rejection. But healing teaches you patience. It teaches you that not every situation deserves a response. And once you learn that, people lose the ability to pull you into emotional confusion. They can no longer use guilt to control your decisions. They can no longer use silence to make you panic. Your peace protects you from emotional traps that once kept you exhausted. There was a time when you may have believed that love meant enduring endless pain. You may have thought loyalty meant tolerating disrespect. Many people stay trapped because they fear losing others more than they fear losing themselves. But real growth begins the moment you realize that your mental and emotional well-being matter too. Peace is not selfish. Walking away from constant emotional damage is not weakness. Choosing yourself is not cruelty. Sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is refusing to continue relationships that destroy your spirit. The beautiful thing about peace is that it changes how you see the world. You stop taking everything personally. You stop chasing closure from people who enjoy leaving wounds open. You stop needing everyone to understand your heart. Instead, you begin protecting your energy with wisdom. You become more careful about who has access to your emotions, your time, and your mind. And with that wisdom comes freedom. Freedom from anxiety, freedom from emotional chaos, freedom from constantly trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it sincerely. Never underestimate the power of a peaceful soul. A calm mind sees clearly, a healed heart moves differently, and when you finally learn to sit in your own silence without fear, you become stronger than the people who once depended on your emotional reactions. Because your peace is no longer something they can steal from you. It becomes your shield, your strength, and your quiet declaration that you will never again hand someone else the power to control your happiness. Toxic people are often uncomfortable around emotionally strong individuals because strength exposes what manipulation tries to hide. A person who knows their worth cannot be controlled easily. A person who understands their value does not crumble every time they are ignored, criticized, or rejected. And that kind of confidence becomes threatening to those who depend on confusion and emotional weakness to maintain power over others. Toxic people often seek reactions because reactions give them influence. But when they meet someone who remains calm, aware, and emotionally grounded, they begin to lose the control they once relied on. Emotionally strong people do not allow every opinion to enter their spirit. They listen, they observe, but they do not let negativity define who they are. This is what frustrates manipulative individuals the most. They expect emotional chaos. They expect you to question yourself constantly. They expect guilt to weaken your boundaries. But emotional strength changes the entire dynamic. It teaches you that not every criticism deserves your attention, and not every person deserves unlimited access to your heart. Once you understand that, your silence becomes more powerful than endless explanations. Many toxic individuals survive by creating emotional instability. One moment they offer affection, and the next moment they create distance. One day they praise you, and the next day they make you feel invisible. Their goal is often to keep you emotionally dependent, constantly seeking reassurance and approval. But emotionally strong people eventually recognize these patterns. They stop chasing mixed signals. They stop begging for consistency from inconsistent people. And the moment that happens, the toxic person begins to lose influence because emotional control only works when someone is emotionally trapped. Strength also frightens toxic people because emotionally mature individuals are difficult to manipulate through fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of loneliness. These are the tools often used to keep people emotionally attached to unhealthy relationships. But healing teaches a person that being alone is far less painful than constantly betraying themselves to keep others comfortable. Emotionally strong people may feel pain, but they do not allow pain to destroy their self-respect. They may grieve, but they do not abandon their dignity for temporary attention. And that level of self-awareness becomes intimidating to those who depend on emotional weakness to stay in control. One of the greatest signs of emotional strength is the ability to remain peaceful without needing revenge. Toxic people often expect retaliation. They expect screaming, arguing, and emotional warfare. But when someone responds with calmness and distance instead of anger, it removes the drama they were prepared to feed on. Nothing confuses manipulative people more than a person who refuses to play emotional games. Your refusal to react becomes a statement that your peace matters more than winning battles designed to drain your soul. Emotionally strong minds understand something important. Not everyone deserves access to their energy. They become selective about where they invest love, trust, and attention. They stop trying to save people committed to misunderstanding them. They stop shrinking themselves to fit into unhealthy environments. And over time, they realize that protecting their peace is not selfish, it is necessary for survival. The truth is, toxic people fear emotionally strong minds because emotional strength cannot be controlled through guilt, fear, or manipulation for long. A strong mind eventually sees through the illusion. It recognizes the patterns, the emotional traps, and the hidden intentions behind destructive behavior. And once a person reaches that level of clarity, they stop seeking permission to protect their peace. They begin choosing themselves without apology, and that is the moment toxic people realize they no longer have power over them. There are people who will test your peace simply because they cannot find peace within themselves. They will speak carelessly, behave selfishly, and create unnecessary conflict, hoping your emotions will rise to meet their chaos. And for a long time, many people live like prisoners to the reactions of others. A single insult ruins their entire day. One rejection destroys their confidence. One betrayal convinces them they are unworthy of love. But there comes a moment in life when you must decide that your emotional stability can no longer depend on the behavior of other people. Because if you hand someone the power to shake your spirit, you are also handing them the power to control your happiness. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your emotions. Some people only enter your life to disturb your peace, to pull you into confusion, or to make you question your value. They know exactly which wounds to touch because they understand that emotional reactions create weakness. The more reactive you become, the more exhausted you feel. Your mind loses clarity, your heart loses balance, and slowly you begin living in constant emotional tension. But healing begins the moment you realize that protecting your inner peace is more important than reacting to every opinion, every insult, and every disappointment. Strong people are not those who never feel pain. Strong people are those who feel deeply but still choose wisdom over emotional destruction. They understand that not every battle deserves their attention. They no longer chase people who enjoy running away. They no longer explain themselves endlessly to those committed to misunderstanding them. And most importantly, they stop allowing temporary emotions to control permanent decisions, because emotional reactions often create consequences that peace would have avoided. When you allow others to shake you easily, you give them influence over your identity. Suddenly, your mood depends on their approval. Your confidence depends on their attention. Your worth depends on whether they choose you or reject you. That is a dangerous place to live emotionally because people are unpredictable. Some will love you one day and ignore you the next. Some will praise you publicly and criticize you privately. If your peace depends on people remaining consistent, your peace will constantly collapse. Real emotional freedom begins when your sense of worth comes from within, not from the unstable opinions of others. There is power in becoming emotionally grounded. Imagine how different your life becomes when criticism no longer destroys your confidence, when rejection no longer convinces you that you are unlovable, and when silence no longer creates panic inside your heart. That is what emotional growth looks like. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop allowing every external situation to control your internal world. You begin responding with wisdom instead of reacting from pain. Many people lose themselves trying to control how others feel about them. They over-explain, overgive, and overextend themselves hoping to avoid rejection. But no amount of sacrifice will force unhealthy people to value you correctly. Peace comes when you stop fighting for validation from those who cannot give it sincerely. Peace comes when you realize that your spirit deserves protection too. The moment you stop giving others the power to shake you, your life begins to change. You think more clearly, you love yourself more deeply, you stop chasing emotional chaos disguised as connection, and little by little, you become someone who cannot be controlled by fear, manipulation, or rejection anymore. Because a person who has mastered their emotions becomes stronger than the people who once believed they could break them. Walking away without anger is one of the rarest forms of strength a person can possess. Many people know how to leave while shouting, blaming, and destroying everything around them. But it takes deep emotional maturity to leave with dignity when your heart has been wounded. It takes wisdom to understand that not every ending requires revenge, and not every pain must become bitterness. Some people expect you to fight for their attention forever. They expect emotional chaos when things fall apart. But there is something powerful about a soul that quietly chooses peace instead of war. For many people, anger feels easier than acceptance. Anger creates the illusion of control. It makes people feel strong for a moment because pain often hides itself behind rage. But anger can also become a prison. It keeps wounds alive long after the damage has already been done. It steals sleep from your nights and peace from your spirit. And sometimes the person who hurt you moves forward while you remain emotionally trapped in resentment. That is why walking away without anger is not weakness, it is freedom. It is choosing not to carry poison in your heart simply because someone else handed it to you. There is a silent confidence in people who no longer feel the need to prove their value to those who failed to appreciate them. They understand that some battles cannot be won through arguments. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how honestly you speak. Some relationships will continue hurting you no matter how much love you give. And maturity teaches you that constantly fighting for peace in a toxic environment will only exhaust your soul. So instead of screaming, begging, or seeking revenge, you simply leave. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself too. Walking away without anger does not mean you felt no pain. It means you refused to let pain turn you into someone filled with hatred. It means you chose healing over bitterness. Many people believe strength is found in emotional reactions, but often the strongest people are the ones who remain calm while their hearts are breaking. They understand that protecting their peace matters more than winning an argument that changes nothing. And there is something deeply powerful about refusing to let another person's behavior destroy your character. Some people will never apologize for the pain they caused. They will never fully understand the emotional weight you carried because of them. If you wait for closure from everyone who hurt you, you may wait forever. Real healing begins when you stop needing other people to validate your pain before allowing yourself to move forward. Closure sometimes comes from accepting that you deserved better and choosing not to return to what broke you. And that acceptance creates peace that anger never could. When you walk away without anger, you also reclaim your energy. You stop replaying painful conversations in your mind. You stop wasting emotional strength trying to make people feel guilty for how they treated you. Instead, you begin pouring that energy back into your own healing, growth, and future. You begin rebuilding the parts of yourself that were neglected while you were busy trying to survive emotional chaos. A peaceful departure confuses people who expected emotional reactions from you. They expected you to chase them, argue with them, or seek revenge. But your calmness becomes your power, your silence becomes your dignity, and your decision to leave without hatred becomes proof that your spirit has grown beyond the need for emotional warfare. Because true strength is not always found in fighting harder. Sometimes true strength is found in knowing when to let go, walk away quietly, and never allow pain to turn your heart cold. Calm people see things that emotional chaos tries to hide. When a person is constantly reacting from anger, fear, desperation, or insecurity, their judgment becomes clouded. They begin making decisions based on temporary emotions instead of truth. And this is exactly why manipulative people often try to create confusion. They know that an overwhelmed mind is easier to control. A fearful heart is easier to influence. But a calm person moves differently. A calm person listens carefully, observes quietly, and refuses to make emotional decisions under pressure. That kind of self-control becomes a shield against manipulation. Manipulative people often depend on emotional urgency. They rush you to react before you can think clearly. They use guilt to make you question yourself. They create emotional tension so you become too exhausted to recognize unhealthy patterns. But calm people slow everything down. They do not allow panic to guide their choices. They understand that peace gives clarity, and clarity exposes hidden intentions. The calmer you become, the more clearly you begin to see who truly values you and who only values control over you. There is something dangerous about a person who has learned how to remain peaceful in difficult situations. Not dangerous in cruelty, but dangerous in awareness. Calm people are harder to deceive because they are not constantly seeking validation from others. They do not need approval to feel valuable. They do not panic at silence. They do not lose themselves when someone withdraws attention. And because of that emotional stability, manipulative tactics begin to lose their power. Guilt stops working. Fear stops controlling them. Emotional games stop creating confusion. Many people are manipulated because they are afraid of losing connection. They tolerate disrespect because they fear abandonment. They ignore red flags because they are emotionally attached to potential instead of reality. But calm people understand something important. Peace is more valuable than forced relationships. They know that loneliness is temporary, but emotional destruction can leave scars for years. So instead of begging unhealthy people to stay, they protect their spirit and maintain their boundaries. And boundaries are difficult to break when they are built on self-respect rather than fear. Calmness also protects people from reacting impulsively. Manipulative individuals often want emotional reactions because reactions create weakness. The moment you become angry, desperate, or defensive, your focus disappears. You stop thinking clearly, but calm people do not allow every insult or accusation to control their emotions. They pause before speaking. They think before responding. And sometimes they choose silence because they understand that not every attack deserves access to their energy. That ability to remain emotionally centered frustrates people who depend on emotional chaos to maintain control. A peaceful mind is not easily distracted by drama. Calm people recognize when someone is trying to provoke insecurity, jealousy, or fear. Instead of immediately reacting, they observe patterns. They notice inconsistency. They pay attention to actions instead of empty promises. And because they are emotionally grounded, they are less likely to become trapped in toxic cycles that drain their peace. Calmness gives them the ability to separate emotions from reality, and that clarity becomes protection. The truth is, calmness is not weakness. It is emotional discipline. It is the result of healing, self-awareness, and inner strength. People who are calm have often survived storms that taught them the value of protecting their peace. They understand how dangerous emotional instability can become when placed in the hands of manipulative people. So they choose balance over panic, wisdom over reaction, and peace over emotional warfare. And in a world filled with noise, confusion, and emotional games, a calm person becomes incredibly difficult to control. Because when someone no longer reacts from fear, insecurity, or desperation, manipulation begins to lose its power completely. Healing changes the way you see people. Before healing, you may have confused attention with love, attachment with connection, and emotional dependency with loyalty. You may have tolerated disrespect because you feared losing someone more than you feared losing yourself. Many people stay emotionally attached to those who hurt them because pain becomes familiar. They grow so used to emotional confusion that they begin to mistake suffering for love. But healing opens your eyes. It teaches you that real love should not constantly leave you anxious, exhausted, and emotionally broken. And the moment you begin understanding that truth, the influence unhealthy people once had over your life slowly begins to disappear. There was a time when a single message from them could control your mood for an entire day. Their approval made you feel valuable, and their rejection made you question your worth. You waited for their attention like your happiness depended on it. Their silence created anxiety. Their distance created fear. And without realizing it, you handed them emotional authority over your peace. But healing changes that. Healing reminds you that your value existed long before they entered your life, and it will continue to exist long after they are gone. The beautiful thing about healing is that it restores clarity. Emotional pain often blinds people. It causes them to ignore obvious signs, excuse harmful behavior, and hold on to relationships that damage their spirit. But when healing begins, denial slowly fades away. You start seeing patterns you once ignored. You notice manipulation you once defended. You recognize how often you abandoned your own needs just to keep someone else comfortable. And while that realization can hurt, it also becomes the beginning of freedom. Because once you truly see the truth, it becomes difficult to remain trapped by illusions. Healing also teaches you how to sit with yourself without needing constant validation. Many people remain under the influence of toxic individuals because they are emotionally dependent on external approval. They need someone else to make them feel lovable, important, or worthy. But healing rebuilds your relationship with yourself. You begin learning that peace does not come from chasing attention. It comes from self-respect. It comes from knowing that your heart deserves honesty, consistency, and care. And once you develop that inner security, unhealthy people lose the ability to emotionally control you. There is a powerful shift that happens when you stop chasing those who only valued your suffering. Suddenly, their mixed signals no longer confuse you. Their absence no longer destroys your confidence. Their manipulation no longer controls your emotions. Not because they changed, but because you changed. Healing strengthens the parts of you that were once vulnerable to emotional control. It teaches you boundaries, it teaches you discernment, and most importantly, it teaches you that protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. Some people become uncomfortable when you heal because your healing removes the access they once had to your emotions. They were comfortable with the version of you that constantly chased, explained, forgave, and tolerated. But healing creates standards. Healing creates distance from emotional chaos. And people who benefited from your emotional weakness may struggle when they realize they can no longer manipulate your kindness. Your growth forces them to face the reality that they no longer have the same influence over your mind or your heart. The truth is, healed people love differently. They no longer beg to be chosen. They no longer shrink themselves to avoid rejection. They no longer sacrifice their peace just to keep unhealthy connections alive. Healing teaches them that love should feel safe, not confusing, peaceful, not painful. And once a person truly heals, the emotional chains that once kept them attached begin to break completely. Because the more you heal, the less power toxic people have over your life, your emotions, and your future.